Welcome everybody to the Crystal Water Experience podcast with me, Dr. Jo Whitaker. And today we're going to be talking about manifestation. And it's probably something you've seen or heard about on social media. It's become more of a popular term. And I was even doing a video about it a few days ago. But I feel that it's something that we need guided practice on because a lot of people are using this term but not understanding the mechanics of it and misusing the term. So I am absolutely delighted to bring back Isabel, who is a manifestation teacher. So this is a process. And like I said in my video, there are rules to how to do this. If you follow those, you're much more successful. And she's also a hypnotherapist and an astrologer. And we did a brilliant podcast, didn't we, about astrology, the world stage and all this kind of stuff. And you absolutely blew my mind. So thank you so much for coming on again and sharing your wisdom, Anna.
Oh, thank you for having me back. I'm just so passionate about sharing my experience and what I know that I'm always very honored when I'm given the opportunity to talk about it all. So thank you.
No worries. And actually, just before we started talking, we were explaining the difference between going on a course and reading a book and experience. And when you gain experience of something, you then become a teacher because you see this on many different levels, don't you? Because once you start teaching people, you start getting feedback about what's working, what the blocks are, how to overcome them. And your experience is absolutely phenomenal with that kind of plethora of knowledge that you have. So I was just wondering, where did with your kind of hypnotherapy and your astrology background, when did this whole kind of coming together of the manifestation and understanding the mechanics of that come for you?
It's been creeping up on me. And I guess the other thing that I need to throw in there is that I'm also a medium.
That's
And it's just, you begin one thing and you learn about another, and then you learn about another, and you learn about another. And suddenly you are, we be, I be, you become aware that there are certain things that link it. So I guess that I am one of those incredibly fortunate people. And I say fortunate because I feel nothing but gratitude about this, is that I have been allowed to explore the world with my heart. And the passion that I have is a passion for discovering and learning. And that passion, as I discover things, turns into tremendous excitement. And I am forever the 3-year-old that says, "Mommy, look what I found, doggy." I think I'm still that child and when I discover something and I start to immediately, because I'm excited, I start to immediately work with it and actually embody it by making it a part of my life. It's not long before I start going, "Hey, look at this, really works." And of course, the way I channel that is through doing workshops and teaching, and also my one-to-one work with clients. I work one-to-one with the medium of astrology, doing mediumship readings, but also as an analytical hypnotherapist. And somehow everything comes together. And I think in terms of manifestation, what prompted me to start creating these workshops and teaching it was a kind of impatience with the notion that you say a few mantras and suddenly everything is going to appear before you. It's much more subtle than that. And it's incredibly elegant in its simplicity, but it's also very nuanced and complex. And it's the combination of that. And when I was training as a hypnotherapist, I remember one of my teachers saying, "You don't just read about hypnotherapy, you read about everything. You beg, borrow, and steal every notion, every concept under the sun, because it's all going to be helpful to you. as you meet people from different walks of life. And also what I've realized is that when I'm learning about the workings of the mind, I'm learning about mind energy. This isn't just neuroscience, it's about consciousness. And then that takes me into my astrology hat and, of course, my mediumship. And it links in with the YouTube channel that I have, which is called In the Light Growing Your Soul, in which I interview people from all manner of spiritual angles and practices. And it all just absorbs into me. And at some point, I have to create something with it. So I don't know that I've answered your question, but it is about the knitting of everything, the bringing of everything together. But the heart of it is the understanding that we are part of a source of everything that is, of abundance, of beauty, that of creation itself. And when we understand that we have that we are from that, then it means that we are forever linked to it, which means that we can tap into that energy and become conduits for that energy. So now we're getting into the realms of magic as well. And magic is not the magician on the stage. It is about the ability to work with energy and to channel that energy for a purpose, with focus for a purpose. And so everything is a piece of the puzzle, maybe is what I'm saying, is that this is a puzzle and everything is a piece. So that as I discover different pieces of the puzzle, I start putting them together so that I can create some very fun workshops for everyone.
I think that's beautifully put. And I think your explanation, if I could put it in some more terms, is I'm looking at the nature, and I speak about the nature of our reality and the mechanics of our body and the mechanics of that. And that's where my soul is drawn to. And when you understand that and understand the nature of our reality, and I'm not using English terms, understanding mean this and understanding, it's like the vibration of your voice, how you interact with our reality also has meaning and effect and consequences. And when you understand that this isn't a 3D world and that okay, I can pick up my mobile phone and put it down, but that's all the things that people think that this world is made of, and it's not, and it's provably so not. So it's brilliant that you are coming together and sharing these teachings because we can create a much better world going forward. And I remember talking to somebody who was very despondent. And if this is you, this is a message for you. Very despondent because they've got more guns than us, they've got more power than us, they've got more this, that, and the other. So that's because you don't understand the nature of our reality that you say this. They have none of this. We have more power than them, but it's because you don't understand. So this is your opportunity, everyone, to have a brief insight into what we can do as humans, especially collectively, but also individually, and then how you can go from this conversation to start learning this for yourself. Because we can listen to this conversation with me and Anna and say, I believe them or don't believe them. And honestly, we don't mind either way. What we're more interested in is those people that take this stuff on board, give it a try, and tell us your results, because that is a completely different story, right? So tell us about your courses. We were just talking a little bit, starting off, about the course that I did with you, the module that I did with you. And I wonder if you talk about that a little bit, how we started off.
Yes, the first one is called Mind Magic, and it is an introduction to the concept of what manifestation is and what holds us back. Why can't we just click our heels 3 times and say a mantra and hey, presto, there's a Porsche or whatever it is we want in front of us? Why can't we do that? because if it's magic, why not? And I think this is where my experience working as an analytical hypnotherapist comes in, because it's all to do with what you actually believe. So it's not about what you want, it's about what you believe. And what you believe is also influenced by how you feel. So this is really about the subconscious mind. And if ever there's anything magical, it is our subconscious mind, because that is your creative seat. It is the source of your power. Your imagination is everything. And people often think they haven't got an imagination. That's the other thing, is they think they haven't got an imagination because they have been taught that unless you're a great artist or a great filmmaker or a great this or a great that, you're not very imaginative. And I can tell you, I've been on that journey myself, because growing up as a child, I was possibly the only child in the school who hated art class. And the reason was because I didn't think I could do anything. And nobody explained to me that these things are a process, and it's not a creativity is not the skill. Creativity is the idea. The skill is what turns it into something. And that some people are more inclined to have some skills than others, but it doesn't mean that the door is closed to you. And that if you can't draw in the way that you think you should be able to, there are other ways of expressing yourself with paint and crayons or whatever. Nobody explained that. I had to work that out for myself. And then I discovered that I can't help but create, and I can't help but imagine. So and that's true for every single one of us. Our imagination is our secret power. And it's secret because a lot of us have to stumble upon it. Some are lucky, it's not so secret, it's there, it's open, and they have people in their lives who nurture that and encourage that, whereas others don't, and it takes longer. So yes, we all have an imagination, and if you think you don't, just think about when you're worried. What is it that you're actually doing when you're worried? You are imagining the outcome, and you're using your imagination negatively. And you will not be dissuaded from being right, that this is going to happen. And the reason is that your experience has built up a picture of what the probable outcome is of this situation. And so you firmly believe that's what's going to happen. Now, you might be right, because sometimes it's obvious that's what's going to happen. If you see a vase falling off a shelf, odds are, in our experience, it's going to break when it hits the floor. You can see it as it's falling. You can see it before it hits the floor. You know it's going to happen. You make a mad dash to catch it, to prevent that from happening. You might succeed. You might not. Or you might discover that there is this other possibility that you hadn't factored in. It's falling to the side where there's a rug. And that rug might just save it from being broken. That's imagination. Equally, when we're excited about something, you're waiting for that meal that you've been looking forward to since you've ordered it, or that, you can smell, and you can already taste it before it's actually on the table. That's your imagination working too. So what is it that determines our propensity towards imagining a positive versus a negative outcome? So this is the difference between the optimist and the pessimist. And so how do we become optimistic or pessimistic? We will have a natural disposition towards one or the other. Okay, that is something that we are born with. As an astrologer, I can tell you that. However, there are going to be experiences which amplify either of those. So if you are, and I work with parents who have children who are very prone to catastrophizing and get a little bit hysterical about things. And the parents are going, where did this child come from? We're not like this. Because it's not just our family cultures, it's also what we bring in from past lives, etc. So those parents will be working really hard to help that child to become more resilient and be able to imagine things more positively. On the other hand, that child may be in a family that reinforces that feeling of learned helplessness or hopelessness. Or it could be you have an optimist that lands in a pessimistic family and gets exhausted from trying to lift everybody up and gets to the point where, I don't know, is it real? Is it me? Am I imagining that things could be good because everybody else around me tells me the opposite? So our early upbringing is going to amplify those predispositions we already have, or is going to try to balance them up. So this is important because that predisposition is already going to it's the halfway road to what we manifest, because it's the foundations of our belief. And belief plays a very important part in this. Manifestation is happening all the time, but it's based on what we believe rather than what we desire. It's not wish fulfillment. It's about the energy that we bring into a desire. You make a wish. Do you believe it's going to come true? Or do you even bother making a wish? Have you given up on making wishes? This is what we need to turn around. And so in the workshop, I show everyone how it is that we create belief. Where does that belief come from? And then we go through a series of exercises to help people clear their minds and to start thinking, using their imaginations to bring in energy, to empower themselves. Because until we can clear all of that and align our belief, our energy with our wish, what we're manifesting may be counter to what we actually wish. And we need to see that link and understand. And by the way, this is not to blame anybody. This is not about blame. If you find that you're in a pattern that you haven't been able to break free from, it's not your fault. It's not. We're not saying that. We're saying that we haven't got the control of this aircraft. Or put it a different way, there's a backseat driver that's in charge of our vehicle. And we haven't spotted that driver yet. Very often, that driver is doing its best to protect us from harm. So working as a hypnotherapist, one of the things that happens is that I'm helping people to see who's driving the car and why. Because it feels like there's a lunatic back there that's hell-bent on getting us into trouble. But no, our subconscious is trying to protect us. And it does so sometimes by a very creative risk assessment strategy. And really, you're afraid of commitment because, for example, you're afraid of commitment and because you were very controlled early on in your life, but you're so craving love and you really want to be in a relationship. But you haven't realized that there's a conflict here. So you keep attracting people who are non-committal. or who are unwilling to commit because they're committed elsewhere. And you're in despair because your heart, it keeps getting broken. That backseat driver has decided that's better than being controlled. And therefore, it's going, oh, she really wants to feel loved. He really wants to feel loved. And, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, look, okay, let's find the safe option. Let's allow somebody to come in for a short time. Okay, it'll hurt, but it won't be as bad as being controlled. That's the risk assessment. And meanwhile, you're beginning to feel like you're cursed because nobody, or that there's something wrong with you because you keep attracting people who won't commit to you. It's okay. It's not your fault. You just don't realize what's going on. And that's why we need to lift the lid on all of this so that we have an understanding of what's really going on inside of us, so we can heal that and bring everything into alignment, because it's at that point that the energy will go where it's meant to go, because your fears have been healed and you're now in a clear trajectory to going where you want to go. And now you can really start manifesting what you desire.
That's so beautifully put, Anna. And that analogy of the backseat lunatic driver who's really looking after you as well is a really great example. And as you were saying it, I was thinking, is modern day psychology really the describing of who is your backseat driver? And fine, you know what it is now, but surely what that makes you do is follow your backseat driver more, because now you're much more aware of what their demands are, rather than trying to work with that backseat driver, aka your subconscious. Because unless you change that backseat driver, you're just going to end up going wherever they're going to take you.
Exactly. It's well known that emotions drive everything. The coolest, coldest, most supposedly objective person is still being driven by the emotion. It's just that the emotion they're driven by is the fear of feeling. So that person that looks robotic, is disconnected, and operates in a way that is perhaps alien to most of us, is being driven by emotion. It's fear. They're hiding behind logic. They're hiding behind objectivity. They think there is no such thing as objectivity. We all have a personal bias. It's the filter of our experience through which we measure everything, and which determines whether we're pessimists or optimists. So that bias exists in all of us, and we need to be aware of it, because sometimes it's really counterproductive. And so what I'm really wanting people to understand from the point of view of both because I'm a psychological astrologer specifically, which means I'm using the birth chart to help people have a good mirror into themselves so that they can see what those drives, emotional drives are that account for the decisions that they make, for better and for worse, because we need to harmonize those different needs, those different desires within ourselves, and heal those big and little traumas so that we're really clear, so that we can actually begin to work. Our ancestors did this. You were talking about modern psychology. They did this, and in some ways it was easier because the world was quieter. Although they worked physically incredibly hard and sometimes very long hours. And I'm talking about pre-industrial world here. The world was quieter, and actually contemplation was encouraged as part of the culture. So in some respects, it was easier for them. In others, it was harder, because obviously life had other challenges. But our ancestors were very familiar. It's not that they didn't do psychology, because if we look at traditional astrology and we look at the definitions of the different temperaments through the humors, that's psychology too. But what they did was they had a different way of expressing it, of understanding it. And they understood that there were energies at work in the world, which they harnessed through what we would see as magical means. So they would have had talismans, they would have had all sorts of objects for luck or for whatever. And so there would have been a synergy of that energy coming in a different way. We're speaking a different language because we're perceiving the world in a different way. And yes, it's all there. And the more we understand what it is that's driving us and what serves us and what doesn't, and how we can be creatively working with it to reshape that into something that is more in alignment with the person that we want to be, the better and the more powerful we become. So that, as I say, this is where we then begin with manifesting. And just one more little example of this. Anyone practicing, whether it's mediumship or magic, and I don't mean to say that the two are the same, I'm just saying the process, there is a process before the work begins to cleanse the auric field and to make sure that the mind is clear so that there is an ability to focus and do the work. And that's necessary. That is a very practical example of why it's important that we clear ourselves of all that emotional clutter that's getting in the way so that we can actually focus and do the work.
Beautifully put. I've got a question for you now, and I know I've got my opinion on it, but the truther movement, do you think that it has given us more backseat drivers to worry about, and if you are not careful, limited your imagination about the possibilities of what we can create and manifest?
Yeah, I think I'm going to make up a story. So I'm just going to use my imagination to illustrate this. Imagine that you are living in a world, a pre-industrial world, and you know your village really well. You know the nearest town, you go to the markets there. It's not perfect, but there's enough to eat and you're warm, you've got shelter, and people generally collaborate. Okay, there's some petty stuff that goes on. And you hear rumors, you hear the rumor of war, but that's in a far distant land and it's not got anything to do with you. And then that rumor of war just seems to be getting a bit closer, and you're thinking, really? Whoa. Or some of the young men in the village, they've been hearing about heroic deeds and they think, that's all right. We can deal with this. And the rumor of war gets closer, and now you hear about what's going on in the town near you. And some are thinking, I'm going to take sides and I'm going to head out there. And they don't come back. And now there's grief in your village. And that's before the war arrives on your doorstep. What do you think you're feeling? Some will have thought, I'll flee. And they have fled. Others will have stayed. And now they wake up to a reality that they did not ever dream of. The world has changed. And actually, a good historical example would be 1066. And this country being invaded by the Normans. For some people, life may have gone on very much as it was, but for the majority of people, in fact, for the whole of the country, it will have changed because rights that you had are lost. The people in charge of you are no longer speaking your mother tongue. And you are suddenly aware that the world that you believed was reasonably benign no longer is, at least for the moment. And I think we have a very similar situation. It's obviously not as openly dramatic as that one, because it's a different kind of invasion or warfare. We've been going along, minding our own businesses, doing what we can to survive and earn a living. And don't you love that expression, earn a living? Everything we've been taught's been conditional. Be a good little boy and girl and good things will happen. Earn a living. You're not entitled to a living. You have to earn a living. You have to prove yourself in some way. And we go along with that. We think, oh, that's not a bad deal, really. Fairy tales tell us that the good will be rewarded and the bad will be punished. But throughout our lives, there's these little warning signs that the world isn't quite as we think. There's a snake in the Garden of Eden. But we can ignore that. We built walls around ourselves. We can ignore that until suddenly there it is. This cobra hissing at us. And it's not just the one, because now we've got everybody chatting. It's not just one. There's another cobra over there, and another one over there, and another one over there. And we can't move. We can't move for them all being there. Where do we get the space in our heads that go, okay, just a minute. Actually, those are phantom cobras. They haven't actually become embodied yet. Maybe they are there, or maybe they're now somebody's imagining them because they're so afraid they can actually see them. So what we're having to navigate through this time is what's real and what isn't. We no longer can distinguish between rumor and reality. And worst of all, there's a lot of projected fear out there. We know what's going on up to a point. We do not know the outcome. We can see possible outcomes and probable outcomes, but we don't know the outcomes. And we can never know the outcomes because we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. We would have to be standing well back to see this picture. There are things that we cannot see. There are things that we cannot see which are really dark, which there are hints of, and those are those phantom cobras I was talking about. We know that they're there. We may not have to face them head on. But we're also not seeing the extraordinary beings of light. And no, we're not going to be rescued. If we continue to look for great leaders to lead us out of this, we will be continually trapped and disillusioned. This is not the answer. Because what that is always doing is it's taking the power away from us.
The power of creation and manifestation away from us, because we are given the program to dream. And then this is why, on one hand, it's a nice thing because it's better than the reality that people have woken up to. But it is not good enough. It's still controlled creation.
Because the reality we've woken up to is only a partial reality. There
Yes.
is a bigger reality, a reality that's harder to see. And that reality is the energy that is in you and the power that you have and the connection between the power that you have and source. That's a reality too. And people are waking up to that, but more slowly than the more obvious reality. And that's the point here. So we need to understand that focusing on that, let's say, 3D reality, that of all the danger and all of the evil, if we focus exclusively on that, we are putting ourselves into a state of fear. And some people will say, and I've heard this many times, but if I stop looking, I'm not going to be ready. In other words, what they're saying is, my survival is threatened. I need to keep an eye on the enemy at all times and not stop looking at them. Otherwise, something terrible might happen. No. No.
Listen, the horror movies have taught us this. If you're running away, if you look back, you'll definitely fall over.
If you carry on looking at that exclusively, you are doing two things. You're doing more than two things. Number one, you're trapping yourself in that world. There is no way out because the more you look at it, the more trapped you're going to feel. And everything that you do that you think is an escape is not an escape, because everything that you do is born out of fear. And your fear is also feeding that machine.
100%.
So you are, in effect, completely disempowering yourself, because that's all you're thinking about. And everything that you do is being dictated because it is a reaction to that world. Now, to a certain extent, that's the case for all of us, because it's a natural process to react to something. To be inspired is also a reaction. If we act on inspiration, it's a reaction to that inspiration. So that's natural. But what is it you want to be reacting to? So the thing to do is to say, yeah, okay, that exists. And that is a danger. And it is quite scary. But I understand that my ability to tackle this head on is limited. So I'm just going to make a decision right now that, afraid though I am going to look away. And I'm going to live my life as I want to live it. Because by doing that, what we're doing is we're making a statement, and we're saying, that stuff I reject completely and utterly and wholly. Whereas if we sit there looking at it and wanting to head at it directly, what are we doing? We're engaging with it, and we're being sucked into that world. We need to know what's going on in that world, because sadly, it can have an impact on us. So we do need to know that. But what we need to do is also at the same time reject the notion that there's nothing that we can do. We do that, we sink into depression, and we stop living our lives. And by de facto, that reality becomes the reality. So we need to say, all right, but I reject it. And with every breath in my body, I align myself with something else. Every molecule in my body is moving in a different direction. And everything that I do will continue to be driven by what I believe and by my desire to connect with others and with everything that I love. That's it. And the more of us do that, the stronger we are, the more energy we're putting into a different reality. And although it's hard and inconceivable sometimes to imagine that could be enough, it is.
Yes, beautifully said, very inspirational. And I echo completely what you've said. I feel that we have some incredible opportunities together to create alternative systems. There is no point telling people that, I don't know, council tax is being wasted and food is poisoned and all this kind of stuff if you don't then provide a solution. And the thing is, there are solutions being created because the people that have had the bandwidth in their minds to create them have done so. And there's groups and there's people, and it needs financing, it needs numbers, it needs attention. And we're still at this point where people are spending more of their time and money saving food for themselves. I keep calling about this. A lot of people in the truth community have just made an enormous amount of money in silver. And they're hoarding it for when the apocalypse comes. Okay, Jack, I'll have silver. Guys, what are you going to buy with it? What are you doing with it? Because we need the help now. There are people now, we are setting up health hubs, educational legal hubs, alternative systems. They need people. It needs financing. And you carrying your, I know people that are carrying silver around in the car. I'm rich, I've got silver. You've got nothing to buy. If the whole thing collapses as you think, you'll have nothing. Because it's happening now. It's not going to happen on a day, boom. I'm sorry, but I just don't believe it's not happening. It's happening gradually. And there are so many amazing different hubs being set up for different endeavours to create new systems of society and to help us build more helpful, happier, healthier, more sustained life. And people are hoarding their money because they're like, but I want to buy silver because I want to get something. They're still in this mindset. I spend something, I'm going to get it back. Guys, we're in this together. Some of you guys have spent all of your time learning about wealth and how to make it. Some of people have learned about health and how to create it. Some people about legalities and how to create new systems. It all needs to work together. This is how we collaborate together. And just, there are people now, to my mind, just made so much money they should be going, right, can see all the good that people are doing. I'm going to give some of my money, not because it's going to be my land, together as this collective community to go and support these health hubs to carry on healing people because that's our way out of this, to go and get some land because then we don't build in houses on it, to go and clean up all the wells so people have healthy water supplies. This is why you've been given. You've manifested this to be part of a whole creative community. And people are just, not everybody is at that stage yet. But that is our way out. No one is coming. We are doing it. And what you're seeing on the world stage is the response to the collective consciousness. They're not doing, Trump did not release the Epstein files, the Epstein information. It was already released by the victims. It's already known. It's just the release bit has been a response to us pressuring it. It's all from us, from our creation, from what we demand and desire. But that is just telling them what we expect of them. We have to have safeguarding communities. We have to protect ourselves. We have to create all this stuff. And it needs people. And it needs collaboration. And it needs organisation. So guys, listen to this. Where are you? Where are you? You need help unlocking that brain space because you're still in this kind of, it's okay, Jack. We need to listen to
Just
Annabelle.
fear, and fear is understandable. But in order to create, we have to take action. We have to act in order to create. And what we want is we want to get our intentions very clear. Our intentions can only be clear when we, as I've described, clear inner conflict. So when we are fully in alignment with who we want to be and we have clear intentions, that then taps into the source that's going to manifest the opportunities. We then have to recognize those and act, build on them. That's the last part, is the action, because through that action, and as long as our intentions become clear and not conflicted, then that action will be in line with the initial intention, and the process of manifestation then is complete. So this is it's very important. And we all need to be patient, because we all know what it's like to be afraid. And so we all need to be patient with the myriad of different ways in which fear is palpably visible, both amongst those who refuse to see the cobra that's slithering towards them. I apologize to Cobra for using it as the bogeyman, but it is a symbol that is very recognizable to most people. But I do, for the oversoul of Cobra, I apologize for casting you in this role. Just at the moment, it was a useful analogy. For those who refuse to see that coming at them because they're too scared to acknowledge it, we must have a tremendous amount of compassion, because we all do this in various ways. For instance, somebody you love is showing symptoms of something, and you're so scared that it's going to be something serious that you want to pretend it's not happening. We all do this in very different ways. Fear is a part of us all. So we need to have compassion for those that we think are asleep. And we need to have compassion to those who are stuck in fear because they know what's going on. And we need to have compassion for those in fear who don't know what's going on, but know something terrible is happening. So that too is a very important part of the elevation of our consciousness. Because the biggest challenge, and there's a lot of talk about Aquarius, the reason is because Pluto's gone into Aquarius, and we have the nodes, the North Node going into Aquarius later this year. Also, this is a very collective energy. It's also a decentralizing energy. But for all who are getting so excited thinking everything's going to be okay because of Aquarius, everything has its shadow. And the shadow of Aquarius is tyranny, because it is one group wanting to stifle the group of others. It's cancellation culture, which we've already got and want to move away from. I know best, therefore you must shut up and do as I say. That's also Aquarian. So the key to all of this is two things: heart, which means compassion, which brings us to tolerance and understanding. And it's not the fake tolerance of the woke movement. It's not, I'm going to be intolerant of your intolerance. It's like using double negatives when you're learning grammar in school and they say, don't use double negatives because double negatives make a positive. It's something along those lines. It's ridiculous. True tolerance means taking a deep breath, being patient, understanding, walking away and allowing for different views. But where there are two minds willing to work through differences, that is exciting because that's creativity. And then we can learn from each other and have mutual respect and work together. The challenge for Aquarius always is the ability to do exactly that, to collaborate, not to get too rigid, not to get too stuck and fixated on a way of thinking, because that's ideology. Ideology leads to tyranny. It always has, it always will. And yes, we all have our moments when we get really frustrated and narky. Just get a punch bag, do that, and then take a deep breath and go, okay, what was it they said? Is there a point? Is there anything valid in what I've just heard? Maybe I just don't like the packaging that it was given to me in. Because often the packaging is not very nice, but there might be a grain that we can work with. So we need to awaken our inner diplomats and actually start learning how to be respectful of difference. The ideal of Aquarius is not one voice, it's many voices singing in harmony. And in order to do that, it takes a lot of rehearsing. And sometimes it gets very frustrating, but it's not impossible. Choirs all around the world to do this every day.
I absolutely love that, Anna. And I am seeing this in action. So, congratulations, everybody, because I think there's been a lot of growth in the last few years. And I'm particularly seeing it, this is when I noticed it, when it was a group of gentlemen who were conversing with the bailiff. Now, what I was seeing a year ago was, yeah, you're all free, everyone's talking over each other. Now, this person, this bailiff person, and the team around them, they've been miseducated, right? They thoroughly believe this, right? The food on the table and their mortgage relies on them to believe the information they've been told. And they're in this system where they have this, right? So shouting at them in at the same time and you're being horrible to them and everyone talking at once, you're not going to change that mindset, right? You're going to make them dig in more because now you've got an aggressive bullies basically being ganged up on. What I'm starting to see now is the energy's going down. They're not going in with that combative energy. They're going in with an authoritative, diplomatic explanation energy, knowing full well that because of how entrenched and how it's so important for the bailiff person to believe what they believe, that they're not going to convince them that day and waffle on about a few statutes and laws and then, oh, that's okay, I believe you now. It's not going to happen overnight. But what you can do is you can calmly and present yourself, present your energy and information in such a way that you are effective in your strategy for that day, which is sending them on the way, and you've sowed a seed. And I am starting to see this happening. People are not talking over each other as much. The same with the paedophile hunters. They used to go, and you're this. They are so brilliant in how their dialogue happens when they catch these predators. It is so compelling, and you can see the impact it has on the person that they've caught, the impact that it's having on the courts and the police because of how they've presented that energy. And I think it's really great that we're learning this, just like you're saying, it's practice. And we have to be aware of this. We can get out our anger and emotion, that's just serving us. What do you want to happen? What is your, like you said, what is your intention? To get out your anger? Great, you've done it. Do you want to make a change? Do you want to stop it from happening? Different strategy.
Yeah. I think the thing about fear is that fear breeds fear.
Mm.
And that has been the weapon that's been used against us for, it seems, all time. And you make people afraid, then they're going to do what they're told. It's a weapon of control. It's about dominance and power and the abuse of power. And if we want to move beyond that, we have to reclaim our power. And that's why we need to clean up our emotions. And we need to understand what's going on in our subconscious that is not serving us anymore. And yes, we are naturally, we'll always have an amygdala. It's there as our survival mechanism. It's there sitting in that reptilian part of the brain, fight, flight, freeze. And I also would add deceive, hide in that as a strategy. And it's useful sometimes, but for the most part, we need to recognize that, understand it. And the more we understand what it is that puts us into a state of fear and how it links to us historically, and can free ourselves from the historic, as I say, big and little traumas, the easier it becomes then to have a clear head and to be able to bring perspective to those moments when we're afraid or when we're angry. In other words, we calm down a lot more quickly. And that is the surest way of achieving power. Because when we calm down and we can think our way out of things, I've seen videos, as you say, of these confrontations. And it's fascinating because the ones that seem to be the most successful are where people are able to manage their fear and speak very calmly. You notice I didn't say control or suppress, I said manage their fear. And it means that then they are able to stand their ground very firmly, very confidently. And what I've seen is that more times than not, the other person blinks. And when they blink, you know that you've won that moment. And it's only going to be a little bit more before they go, all right, I think I'm going to back up here because I'm not going to be able to achieve what I want. And I've heard them arguing points of law, saying, no, you're wrong, you're wrong. But when the person calmly states, no, and it's this number, whatever it is, and you need to, they will still be reiterating that they are right, even as they are retreating into their cars. And it's very interesting because I wonder how many of them then go and look up what they've just been told. I suspect many of them won't, because that will scare them too much, because it will shake their position too much, and they'll just refer it to their supervisors or whatever. But I am seeing, yeah, I have seen a number of things like you've just talked about. And it is where people are standing really calmly that it becomes most effective. So yes, that is a good example.
Great. So for people listening now and perhaps wondering whether or not their subconscious mind is affecting their actions and their everyday life and what they have and their experience, what would you suggest, Anna? What's their next step? Let's take some action.
If you're going to take action, it just depends on where you're at. If you're at a point in your life where you feel like you're exasperated and frustrated with yourself because you have done a lot of work on yourself, and I hear this from my clients a lot, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, that means you need a bit of help. And we all need some help sometimes. So do please find somebody that you trust and want to help. And of course, I would be very happy to help you myself. So that's one possibility. If you are at a stage in your life where you could just use some pointers, then make sure that you're reading good things that are actually going to nurture you and nourish your soul, and listen to things that are going to open your mind, connect with people who are very positive. That might be enough, but you also might still want to do some help, and always doing workshops and having learning experiences where you meet people who are of a like mind. Anything that opens your mind is a good thing. Books, podcasts, workshops, courses, do it. Just do it. Just do it.
Great. And for your courses on how to manifest, and I actually think what you've just described as the process, you first of all have to set your intentions before taking action. And that sounds so obvious, but I think many people take action without properly understanding their intention. And this is when things go wrong. And I've learnt this through for many years in my career to set because there's so many different outcomes that you can achieve, but you have to focus on the ones that you are looking for. Otherwise, if you just take the action doesn't speak to that. So I think it's a brilliant package you've put together, and it's a workshop, isn't it?
It is. So, yes, I have a series of workshops which I am running. I'm doing two of them this month and another one next month. So, at the moment, I've got a trio. The first one is about mind magic. So, it's understanding your mind. And there are lots of exercises that are about clearing the mind, self-empowerment, plus also beginning to see the stories, what it is that you believe, uncovering beliefs. So that's this first one. The second one, you could do any of them in any order. I'm just
Okay.
thinking of the order in which I've designed them, which has a process in mind, but you can dip in and out of each, and they stand alone and they inform each other regardless. So the second one is called Be the Hero Within. And really, it's about finding how you can be the center of your picture. This is not about becoming selfish or self-centered, but it is about understanding what it is that you want out of your life. And so there are lots of exercises again that help you to have to that sense of personal discovery and empowerment. And even if you already feel like you've discovered yourself, that's fantastic. Let's strengthen that. So it's about strengthening always. And the third one, which I'm actually in the process of creating, is we hear there's all these buzzwords, aren't there? Manifestation, mindfulness is the other one. What does that actually mean? So, what can we do to be more present? Because ultimately, this is about grounding ourselves in the moment. And you know what our minds are like? They're on 100 different things at the same time. You're doing one thing, you're thinking about another, you're playing with your children, but you're thinking about all the things you need to do. We need to understand the importance of doing that focus so that there's eye contact, that there's connection. Children know, they sense whether you're connected or not. Your dog knows whether you're connected or not. You may be playing tug with him, but believe me, if your eyes are not focused on him, he knows you're not present. So it's learning about why that's important and what we can do to bring that back into our lives. And that's what it means to be mindful. That's what it means to be present. That's what it means to be grounded. And for those of you who have animals in your lives, they will show you how to do that brilliantly. Just sit, observe, learn, and do what they do because they are totally plugged in to what's going on in the moment.
In the now. And that's where our power is. It's in the now. It's not in the future. It's not in the past. It's in the now. And it's surprisingly difficult for many people to do. People don't realize they're not in the now a lot. So,
You did. You were before we started. You were talking about because you did the first one, which was mind magic, and there was an exercise in which getting getting everyone to clear their minds, and it was quite funny because it got so complicated for some people,
so
and it really,
complicated.
yeah, it really showed how much their brains were just overthinking everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience. So I strongly encourage everybody to go to Anna's website, look at Anna's course, but I will put details at the bottom of here. Anna, can you just tell us what it is though for those people listening on the
Yeah.
podcast?
So I have two websites, lifeastrologer.com and lifehypnosis.net. Lifeastrologer.com allows you to sign up to my newsletter, and it's also where I list all my events. So yes, so they're both there to give you information about the some of the work that I do, but Life Astrologer is where all the events and the newsletter reside.
And highly recommended, everybody. If you've never done anything like this before, time to step outside your comfort zone and try and work out what's going. Who's in your back seat driving? Because that's what I want to know. Because we can need to change their attitude, don't we?
Please do, because otherwise you're going to be going in the think, hang on a minute, I didn't want to go that way. I wanted to go that way. How did I end up here?
Exactly. Yeah, let's change those backseat drivers because we can do without them, and that's fantastic. So, highly recommended. Anna's just so very good at explaining how things work. She makes it very easy to understand. So, even if it's your first time doing this, give it a go. Let's all get more powerful. Let's all get together. And thank you so much for being on the call and explaining and bringing your wisdom and knowledge, Anna.
It's an honor. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, everybody. And that was a Crystal Water Experience podcast. Please and share and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next week for a new podcast with a new subject matter expert. So have a brilliant week and manifest what you want.